Solos. So, when you're going to Disney by yourself and you're having a great time, but you're feeling a little anxious, what do you do? What could you do? Well, that is actually a whole other episode full of solo spoilers of ways to shake it off. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I have been saying shake it off a lot lately. But in this mini bonus episode, I'm going to talk about some experiences I had with anxiety in my last Disney trip that I just did a full episode on because I thought it might be useful to share my experiences. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. In today's mini bonus episode, I just thought it'd be kind of useful. I kind of talked about it a little bit in the big episode, but I thought maybe it'd be useful to share kind of a larger way, a little bit story about how, there's a cat, a little bit about some anxiety that I had on this past trip, and the strategies I had or whatever for kind of working through it and ensuring that it didn't ruin my vacation. And if it's helpful for you, then that's great. If not, then you can just hear the story. And if you don't want to hear anything else but anxiety in the year of our Lord 2024, there's some people car racing outside, then feel free to skip this bonus episode and just wait until next week for another fun, long episode. All of the links are in the description below to follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Threads and Apple and Spotify and YouTube and all of that stuff. And it's always great when you subscribe and rate and review and blah, 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 blah. You can also buy me a coffee. There's a link down there too. This is not a full episode, so let's stop the preamble and just get into it. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Again, this is going to be the idea is that it's going to be a short episode. I should never, ever, ever comment on the length of the episode at the beginning of the episode. Ever, ever, ever. But I imagine this is going to be a short episode because it's really just going to be about one topic. So when I was recording the longer episode about my trip and then consolidating all the tips, I had a list of things that I wanted to talk about, and this was one of the things I wanted to talk about when I was there. I was like, maybe I should talk about this on the podcast. But then, I don't know, even though I have points when I'm, recording episodes, sometimes, the stories are just a flow in. So it doesn't, certain things don't make sense. And so when I was at Magic Kingdom on my very last day, I just got this crazy wave of anxiety that I could not shake off. Well, I mean, I did shake it off. That's the point of this mini episode. But it was kind of surprising to me. And even though in the long episode, I did talk a little bit about some anxiety that I had at Hollywood Studios, this was much different and bigger and whatever. And so I just thought I would kind of talk through that because I don't want it to seem in the podcast ever that solo travel does not have any sort of anxiety involved with it, or that if you're feeling anxious, that's not the best way to do your vacation and all that stuff. And I never want to suggest that. I recognize, especially just in our current life, I don't know, 2024 is tough, right? It's a tough world that we're living in. Social media, all these different financial pressures, instability, whatever. Also the Christmas season, so you don't need to hear this whole list. I feel like we're just living in a very anxious age, and if you are a millennial or a Gen X, and I'm kind of on the cusp of both of those, I know that you're feeling that as well. So I didn't want to, it's not like I avoided it in the episode, it just didn't seem to make sense. But on my last day, I went from my off-site hotel, I took an Uber to Magic Kingdom, and it dropped me off at the Ticket and Transportation Center, and I was like, oh, well, when you stay at a Disney resort, you are staying at the Disney buses. It's a much different place. I have to now take the monorail or the ferry over. And actually, the ferry is beautiful and has a really great view of the fireworks, just so you know, if you ever want a place to go see the fireworks. So, I don't know, maybe that threw me off. And then I also got a weird email related to work stuff, so maybe that threw me off. I don't know, and the fact that it was only going to be a couple hours, and I don't currently have a 2025 vacation to Disney booked. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I got into Magic Kingdom, and usually going underneath the train tracks always just puts my nervous system at ease. I've talked about that on the podcast before, but for some reason, as soon as I went underneath those train tracks, I felt immediately anxious. And there was a character cavalcade, and I've never really seen the cavalcades. I've just seen the parades. So I stood underneath the train tracks to be able to go and like watch the cavalcade. But the cavalcades don't do that whole loop. So I realized that I like missed it from where I was standing. And so maybe that threw me off. I don't know. So I was like, look, just get on the train, and it says that Tiana's Bayou Adventure doesn't have a, long wait time. Just see if you can hop in that line, because I love the line. I love all the details in the line. So I did that. I took the train, I hopped off at Tiana's Bayou Adventure, realized it's a virtual queue, and I don't know your experience with anxiety solos, but all of us, I just felt my whole body was just super anxious. I was really, really grumpy, not unhappy, but grumpy and anxious. And those were the only kind of emotions I could piece out. So just like I've done already on this little bonus episode, I started making a list of all the things that could have caused me anxiety. The fact it is my last day, the fact I didn't wake up at the Disney hotel and I had to take an Uber in so it, burst the bubble. The fact I got this weird email. And also solos, look, This is whenever I'm mentoring younger professionals and younger staff, I always say to them, take your vacations, never apologize for taking your vacations, do not check your email or do any work on vacation. And I live by those rules. When I am an educational consultant, so sometimes I work in institutions and sometimes I'm working freelance. And when I'm working in an institution and I'm on vacation, I turn my email off. But right now, because I'm working in freelance, it's nice to just kind of be connected with different clients. So I had checked my email, although it was stupid. It was a Friday, so I could have waited. So again, protect your boundaries. Protect your boundaries, solos. Protect your boundaries. So maybe it was getting that email and kind of thinking about it. Even though it wasn't a bad email, it just popped the bubble of being, in your vacation world. Maybe it was the fact that I couldn't ride Tiana's because it was a virtual queue. Maybe it was the fact that all the lines were starting to get very long, even though when I arrived at Magic Kingdom, the wait list said they were quite short. Maybe it was because I haven't drank enough water that day or the day before, but I was making this list of all these things in my head that was making me anxious. And all of them could have been true. All of them could have been true individually and collectively. And even though sometimes for me, making a list of the things that are kind of buzzing around in my head is actually quite useful for piecing out all of the different pieces and being like, oh, this is it. Okay, this is it. How can I problem solve it? In this particular case, all I was doing was creating like a Jenga tower of things that were like quote unquote wrong. And they weren't wrong, but like things that were just causing me anxiety. So I realized I had to stop. There's the movie Best in Show, directed by Christopher Guest, one of my favorite movies of all time. And there's like a line that he says in it that's like, you got to stop naming nuts. It's a long thing. If you get the joke, you get the joke. And so I just realized I had to stop naming nuts. Like it's so easy when you were by yourself. Because I was like, maybe it's because I'm by myself and I'm lonely. Like, maybe, it's solo vacations. I love a good solo vacation. I do a lot of things by myself. I love my own company. But sometimes it can be lonely. I totally get that. So I was like, you need to stop naming nuts. You need to stop listing the things that you think are wrong in this moment because it is not going to get better. So I got something to eat. I got something to drink. I found a quiet little place to eat and to drink. And I didn't want to stay on my phone. Like I wanted to kind of stay present and I wanted to just kind of focus as much as possible. And I looked out from where I was sitting and I saw where, if you know Pirates of the Caribbean, there's the bathrooms that are in the back. And then if you are just going out the exit of those bathrooms, there's a little enclave right there. And I looked out and there were all these adults hanging out in this area. And I realized when they were moving around that there was Captain Jack Sparrow right there meeting and greeting people. So here I am eating a shrimp gumbo, which was delicious, and watching Captain Jack Sparrow. And I had stopped naming nuts. I stopped naming the list of things in my brain that was causing me anxiety. And I was like, look how magical, like be present, like look how magical, look where you are right now. Like it's so easy to make a list of all the things going wrong, even though nothing was really going wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's how most people's anxiety works. And just start looking around at all the things going right. All the things going right. Number one, I'm in freaking Florida at Walt Disney World. How amazing is that? While I'm at Walt Disney World, I am creating content for you solos because I get to talk about my experience on a podcast. How great is that? I have plenty of money in my bank account to buy a lunch and get beignets and get a lemonade and get a water. Like, how wonderful is that? It's not that busy at the park, so I was able to get a quiet spot with nobody around me and watch Captain Jack Sparrow. How wonderful is that? Even if all the lines are super long and I don't get a chance to do anything here at Magic Kingdom today, even though it's like the last time in the foreseeable future that I will be going to Walt Disney World. Like, how lucky am I to have 2 hours? Oh my gosh, just talking about this now, I feel so overwhelmed with gratitude. Like, how lucky am I even just to be here for 2 hours and walking around at a place that I love so much? How lucky am I that I get that freedom to do that, and that even though I check my emails, like how wonderful it is to be working with clients who like know I take vacations. Like, just how wonderful are all these things? Just how wonderful are they? Now, whether or not you think it's a placebo or not, because I kind of think it is, I do find that when I drink the very expensive Smart Water in the parks, it does hydrate me more than a regular bottle of water. So I was like, look, maybe you're just dehydrated and you're gonna have to spend you're gonna have to spend the equivalent of like dinner on bottled water today to get your electrolytes up. Like, how lucky are you that you have that choice, that you can make that choice? And I was like, you also have all these other choices. Like, you can go back to the hotel even though you checked out. You can afford another night/day at the offshore, the offsite hotel. Like, your other options are fine too, but look how lucky you are to be at Magic Kingdom. And so I finished my expensive bottle of water. I had my delicious lunch. I gave myself a little stretch, like I just kind of stretched it out. And I heard my back crack, my neck crack, and I was like, oh, yeah, I could be like holding into some stuff there. And I was like, look, don't stress. I remembered I wanted to go see the Christmas decorations by Gaston's Tavern that I didn't really get to see during the Christmas party at Magic Kingdom because it was dark out. And so I was like, look, that's all you're going to do. You're just going to do as Anna says in Frozen 2, although I don't actually like this particular song. I find it very, very harsh and sad and emotional. Like just do the next best thing. Just be there. So like I said, I gave myself a stretch. I drank my expensive bottle of water. And Captain Jack Sparrow by this time had just disappeared. I didn't even see him leave. So like, again, it was just like a little magical mirage. And I got up and I, walked over to Gaston's Tavern. On my way there, I see this family reading one of the paper maps and just like pointing all over the place and getting so confused. So I just stopped and I helped them. And, I like to be helpful. So that connection made me like just remember the community that I was in. And yeah, and by the time I got over to Gaston's Tavern, I could feel the anxiety had gone from my body because I was just kind of there. And it really kind of threw me because I'm not used to feeling that level of anxiety in the parks or anything like that. And so it was one of those moments where I was like, this could make or break the whole day. Right. And ways to just kind of like come back to myself and where I am and be able to look for all of the magic all around me was a way to connect again to my solo magic, because I think that in these moments of anxiety, it's like letting go of that magic that you hold that connects you to yourself. And I had given it up in whatever the particular trigger was. And then I just kept triggering it by reminding myself that, like, by just like reminding myself of things that pulled me further away from my own solo magic. And so it was really nice to be reconnected with that and to ensure that it really connected me back with my day. And, like sometimes I'm out in my own city or my own home office and I feel all that anxiety too. And in those cases, because I am like, I'm at home or I'm in my city or whatever, it is easy to either stay in it, but also know if you stay in that grumpy anxiety place, it's kind of safe because you're just grumpy at home. Or you can also get out of it really easily because you are at home and you will have things that connect you to your own stories. But when you're traveling, it's extra scary because, you're away. But it was a really good reminder of ways to practice kind of lessening that anxiety rather than going through all the list of things that could be making me upset, to be reminded to like stop naming nuts. To like stop making that list and really just focus on making a list of all of the magical things that you have created in your life or that are part of your life. And that was really wonderful. So anyway, I just thought that hopefully that was a useful little story to share. It wasn't too maudlin. It wasn't too kind of sad. But again, it was a really surprising moment for me. And so I wanted to share it just as a way to highlight the other element of kind of solo travel. And again, I know there's a lot of anxieties that come with solo travel. I can do a whole episode on that, maybe in the new year, but I just wanted to share this in a little bonus episode. So I hope it was useful. I was going to say, hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed knowing I was like miserable for a good 30 minutes in the park. But I hope that you found it useful. Anyway, I hope you have a really great weekend. I know that the holidays can be, like the winter season can be really, really stressful. But, this year because I am doing this writing project that has nothing to do with Disney, that's about ghosts. I think I've mentioned that somewhere else. I've been really getting into a lot of stuff. I don't know, just kind of about nature. Anyway, I have really been thinking about the Christmas season, and I don't have a very large family, so we don't have in-laws and, a whole bunch of different kids and the stresses and the aunts and the uncles and all of that. And so I'm in a privileged position, I guess, to be able to say this. But I've been really thinking of Christmas this year as a real celebration of light, and light in terms of both the lights of the Christmas tree and the fire and those kind of symbolisms of Christmas, but also the white of the snow, for example, and really just kind of thinking it of a season of quietness and darkness in a way that is also very contemplative, and to prepare you for a rebirth that's coming in the spring. So anyway, if you are getting anxious during this time of year, because that is how this time of year goes, that might be a useful set of stories and images and icons, symbols to kind of think of too, to think of how natureful Christmas is and how it really does symbolize the return of the light, and that we're going to have this, period of darkness before the spring when the world opens up again, when it rebirths. Now, look, for all of you in Florida, can't really help you with that because it's sunny all the time for the most part. So maybe you just think of it as the season of the festival of the holidays until there is a rebirth, until you are full of art, until you can get to Flower and Garden, and then start burrowing into fall with the food and wine. So there you go. All right, until next week. Bye, everyone. Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. If you want to support the podcast, the best way to do it is to buy me a coffee. The link to my Buy Me a Coffee page is in the description below, and I really, really appreciate that support to get me caffeinated through another week of podcast recording and editing. However, if you don't want to buy me a coffee, that's super cool as well. The other ways you can support this podcast is just to make sure that you rate, review, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and or YouTube. And to make sure that other people know about this podcast by sharing your favorite episodes or some tips and tricks and tagging me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, and the best way to get in touch with me directly is through a direct message on Instagram. I can't wait to continue creating this content for you. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week. Bye!